Okay.
Wait for him to finish his question.
I'm sorry.
Have you at any time looked at the lawsuit that is on file in this case?
No.
Have you looked at any photographs pertaining to this case?
No.
Any videotapes?
No.
Any type of film?
No.
Now, other than your attorney here, Mr. Churchill, have you discussed this case with anyone else?
With his paralegal, Ann Dana.
Who?
Ann Dana, Ray's paralegal assistant.
It's a yes or no question.
Yes.
On how many occasions did you
Twice.
discuss this with her? All right. When was the last time?
I don't remember the exact day, a couple weeks ago.
Was that simply for the purpose of coordinating the
Yes.
deposition? Remember, you have to make sure I finish before you start your answer. Have you ever discussed the case with Milo Bell?
No.
Now, I think you indicated that. You returned to the site of this accident on a second occasion, correct?
Yes.
All right. Was that in December or was that yesterday?
That was yesterday.
Yesterday. When you went there yesterday, why did you go there?
I went there to get a fresh look at it, to refresh my memory.
Okay.
And I also went there to take some photos.
And did you take some photos?
Yes, I
And
did.
how many photos did you take?
I took one complete roll of 24,
Is that color or black and white?
color.
Where is that today?
I don't know, I gave it to Ray.
And do you know if those photographs that you have taken yet been turned into print?
To my knowledge, they have not.
Mr. Churchill, I would ask that when those photographs are converted into prints, that we be provided with copies,
I have no problem.
which of course we'll pay for.
Sure, I have the roll right here.
Thank you. What is it that you took 24 color pictures of?
I took pictures of the road in general. I took pictures of the pole location specifically.
When you say the pole location specifically, you mean where the pole was located at the time of this accident?
That's correct.
Did you take any pictures of where the pole has now been moved to?
There is no new pole.
If I were standing on the location where the pole was at the time of this accident, isn't it true that there's a pole on the same side of the road a little further up, 35, 40 feet?
No,
How far is the next pole?
206 feet.
When you say pole, what kind of pole are you referring to? Telephone pole or?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to have this marked as plaintiff's next in exhibit in order. I'll show this to your attorney first, and now I'll show it to you.
Okay, I see it.
All right. You said there's a pole about 200.
That's the pole.
Okay, fine. But what is that pole that is depicted in this photograph, Plaintiff's Exhibit 15?
Well, if we can look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 3, that would be pole 17 on this drawing. It's also depicted on another one of the exhibits here. This says,
Which one?
right here,
17 or 23?
it's 23, I'm sorry. 17 is the other one.
What are you talking about?
All right, pole 23. This is 17 is a footage indicator. I looked at the wrong thing.
To make sure the record is clear,
It's pole 23, yes.
Wait for him to ask a question.
and that's my understanding is clear. The pole depicted in Plaintiff's Exhibit number 15 is what you described as pole number 23, correct?
Correct.
All right. And the pole where this accident occurred, it had a number also, did it not?
Yes.
So that was number 22?
Yes.
All right. 22 is not there today, is it?
No.
Do you know when 22 was removed?
Not exactly that.
Let me tell you another rule also about depositions. I forgot to tell you at the beginning. You're not supposed to guess, okay?
Okay.
But I'm entitled to your best estimate if you have a best estimate, your best recollection. And so my question would be, what is your best recollection as to when pole number 22 was removed?
Do you have to see a document?
I have to see the document. I have no personal recollection. According to Plaintiff's Exhibit number 8, it was removed in December of that year.
Were you present when it was removed?
No.
Where does Exhibit 8 come from?
It's a face sheet of an engineering work order, which we call a routine order, and it comes from my engineering shop,
Okay.
our engineering shop.
How many engineers are there in your engineering shop?
You want total, including contract engineers or just the Pacific Bell employee engineers?
Why don't we break it down into both categories?
I don't know the exact number, but I can give you an estimate.
Sure, your best estimate.
There are 8 Pacific Bell engineers, and I believe there are 10 contract engineers.
Are you responsible for working within a particular geographical area?
Yes.
Could you describe that area to me, please?
My present area?
Your present area.
My present area is this exchange.
And how far south does that come?
It comes to just north of Hopland, about 6 or 7 miles south of the city there.
And so your present area does not include the site of this accident?
No, it does not.
All right. I take it at some time, however, the place where you were assigned to work did include the site of this accident. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I am defense attorney. My name is Mr. Worthington, W-O-R-T-H-I-N-G-T-O-N.
I am second defense attorney, Mr. Lusick, L-U-S-I-C-H.
I am the witness.
I'm for the plaintiff, Mr. Guenard, G-U-E-N-A-R-D.
Okay, starts with question by me, defense attorney. Ready? Are you familiar with any safety devices that were removed from machines before Mr. Caceres' accident with his fingertip?
Objection, assumes facts not in evidence, but go ahead.
No.
Are you familiar with any safety devices that were installed on the machines after his accident?
Yes.
Okay, what safety devices were installed on machines after the accident?
A screen that has to be closed before the machine can be turned on.
Is there an electrician employed in the plant during the swing shift?
Yes.
From time to time, do you ever request assistance from the electrician to make electrical repairs?
Yes.
If the electrician effected some repair to a machine, would that have been noted on the downtime sheet for the machine?
It should be.
That's all I have, Mr. Arnold. Sir, I've got a couple more questions here that occurred to me. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
When you were standing there across the machine from Mr. Caceres, was it your intention to help him, as necessary, unjam the machine?
No.
Were you attempting to provide Mr. Caceres with any advice about how to unjam the machine?
No.
The switches that you've described, the power switch, the green belt switch, the reset switch, knife switch, were those on the side of the machine that he was standing on?
Yes.
Why were you standing there if you were not intending to assist him or provide him with any advice?
Why was I standing there? Well, I was waiting for something to break down. I was just standing there, passing time.
And so you had no intention of doing anything yourself in order to unjam that machine?
No.
You didn't make any effort to determine whether the switches were on or off. Then, I take it?
Carlos was in control of that. They were on his side of the machine.
So looking at it conversely, then you did nothing yourself, I take it then, to determine whether the switches were on or off, or just what position they were in, correct?
At that time after it happened, it looked to me like the switches were in the correct position.
Mr. Arnold, before Mr. Caceres' accident, did you take any steps to determine what position the switches were in?
Before his accident?
Before his accident?
Just before?
At any time before?
Before, no.
Okay. And you've told us that after you returned from Mr. Case's office, you did nothing to determine what position the switches were in, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Now, after his accident, before you took the fingertip to Mr. Case's office, did you go around to the other side of the machine to look at the switches then?
No, I know.
Okay. Well, before returning from Mr. Case's office, but after the accident, did you at any time look at those switches?
After his finger was lopped off, I gave a cursory glance to that side of the machine, and it looked to me like he had the switches off.
You could see those switches from the other side of the machine where you were standing?
Yes.
And that was a cursory glance that took a matter of a second or two?
Objection, argumentative.
Is that right?
I looked over there at the switches.
Where was his fingertip, by the way, on the machine?
It rolled down a chute onto the green belt.
How far is it from the cutting blades to the point on the green belt where you found Mr. Caceres' fingertip?
About 1.5 feet.
When you unjam the machine, do you ever put your fingers or hands underneath the cutting bar?
No,
That wouldn't be safe in your judgment, would it?
I just don't do it.
You don't do it because it wouldn't be safe, correct?
Objection, asked and answered.
Objection, that calls for an expert opinion.
He's an expert
On what?
on his machine.
He hasn't been qualified as an expert, though.
Let's read the question back, please.
I just don't do it.
Well, in your judgment, would it be safe to put your fingers under, Mr. Arnold, in your judgment, would it be safe to put your fingers underneath that cutting bar while unjamming the machine?
Go ahead and answer it.
I don't do it myself.
Well, I'm done questioning, Mr. Arnold.
You're done? I'm sorry?
I'm done. I'll let somebody else try now.
I want the last question reread, please. Mr. Arnold, that's a yes or no question.
Well, I'm going to object. He's already answered the question several times. If he can't answer it, he can't answer it.
He's given no clear answer yet.
You're badgering the witness at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to badger a little bit because he's avoided answering the question.
Well, if he can answer it, yes or no.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a yes or no. It's argumentative to tell him that he has to answer yes or no.
If you tell me you can't answer the question either yes or no, I'm going to ask why. But I want to know. Can you answer yes or no on that question?
It's also vague and ambiguous. There's a million different situations where it's on or off or unplugged or plugged and so forth.
Please answer it.
If you can.
I wouldn't do it myself.
Because it would be unsafe, is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold, why wouldn't you put your hand under that cutting bar?
I use a tool. It's just that I don't put my hand there.
Do you feel it would be unsafe to put your hand under that machine?
If there's a tool to do the job, I'll use a tool.
All right, going back to the beginning of this deposition, you took an oath to tell the truth.
Uh-huh.
And I know you're going to try to do that to your very best ability today. And I want to tell you one thing, in addition to the other admonitions you got, and that is that you are not here on one side of the case or on the other.
Uh-huh.
You're here to testify truthfully.
Uh-huh.
Now, the question that's been asked, whether or not it was unsafe for Mr. Caceres to put his hand into the machine in the manner he did at the time the finger was lopped off. And I want to know if you feel it was safe or unsafe.
He's answered that 5 times.
Go ahead.
It's vague and ambiguous.
Go ahead and answer if you can.
I say safe is vague and ambiguous. There's 7 different meanings to what safe is. Safe per OSHA, safe in general, safe per any kind of statute or regulation. And you don't have to answer the question yes or no if you can't.
Ask another question, counselor, please.
I've answered I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Well, I wouldn't do it.
There's no question before you.
There is a question. Is he being instructed not to answer?
I want to hear the question again, please.
Okay, let's have it back. Was it safe or unsafe? Go ahead and answer it.
Well, it should have been safe.
Why do you say it should have been safe? I don't understand.
Well, the switches were turned off.
In your opinion, the switches were turned off, is that right?
That's how I recall them being, yes.
And you feel that if the switches were turned off, it is safe to put your hand into the machine in the way which Mr. Caceres did when his finger was cut off, is that right?
It should be, yes.
Now, are there different ways to approach unjamming the machine? For instance, approaching it from the bottom up or from the top down?
Yes.
How is he approaching the task of unjamming the machine? From the bottom up or from the top down?
From the bottom up.
And do you unjam the machine from the bottom up ever, or do you approach it from the top down?
Both ways.
You do it both ways. Now, when you come from the top down, is there any exposure of one's finger to the knife blades?
There could be.
There could be. When you come from the bottom up, is there exposure to one's fingers to the knife blade? Exposure of any fingers, I guess I want to say.
There could be, yeah.
Have you heard from any source that there was any kind of electrical malfunction in the machine at the time the incident occurred?
No.
Okay. Have you heard from any source that the switches on the machine were faulty at the time the incident occurred?
No.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not those switches operated properly at the time the incident occurred?
No.
Do you have an opinion why, if the machine was off, his finger got cut off?
I think the machine or the motor didn't stop immediately and it cycled one more time and made one more cycle and the knife went in.
So the machine had been shut off, in your opinion, but it had not ceased running, is that right?
Right.
Have you ever seen the machine do this before?
Yes.
Does this happen just about every time you shut the machine off, that it takes a little while for the machine to stop completely?
Well,
Do you understand?
repeat that again. I'm sorry.
All right. I just want to know if basically every time you shut the machine down, you can expect this phenomenon of the
No.
thing coming to more gradual stop.
No, I had never seen it to that degree.
All right. So you think that at the time of the incident, the machine functioned in a way that you had never seen it function before. Is that what you're saying?
Objection misstates the testimony. Go ahead and answer if you can.
I had seen it cycle a little bit, but never to that degree.
Okay. We were talking about cycles, and in this particular instance, we are talking about cuts of blades. One pass of the blades up and down.
Uh-huh.
Yes?
Yes, that would be a cycle.
All right. Now, if you think about the times you've observed the blades as the machine comes to a stop, tell me what the longest time you've ever seen is between the last cut of the blade and the next to the last cut of the blade.
Do you understand that?
No.
Okay. I'm asking you to think in your mind about the times you've seen the machine shut off, and I'm sure there are many of them, and the blades gradually coming to a stop. And I want you to tell me how long it usually is between the time the blades make that last pass, after which there is no other pass. You know, the last cut.
Uh-huh.
And then the time immediately before. Is it like a second as this thing slows down?
I couldn't give you a time on that. I mean, I just couldn't.
Has Mr. Caceres appeared in any way different to you after the incident from before, other than the fact that he's had his fingertip taken off?
Objection, vague and ambiguous as to the term different.
Yeah, different.
Okay, does he perform his job any less satisfactorily now than he did before the incident?
Same objection as to the term satisfactorily.
That's fine, you can answer.
Carlos is the same in my judgment.
Alright, the same employee performance in your judgment?
Yes.
Before and after, yes?
Uh-huh,
Yes?
yes.
And then looking at him socially. I know you don't spend time with him socially, but just looking at him as comparing his personality now to before the incident, as far as you've been able to observe, just being a coworker, have you noticed any difference?
No,
Has he ever reported to you that he feels different now than he did before the incident as a result of his finger being lopped off?
no.
When you put the ice in the jar, what size jar was it?
What do you mean by that?
Start with the size of a coffee mug, not necessarily a coffee cup, but a coffee mug, like these here on the table. Was the jar bigger than that?
Yes,
Was it about twice the volume of that?
I'd say so.
Okay, and was it a jar that ordinarily had a cap screwed onto it?
No,
Was it a jar that doctors keep in their offices, that they keep cotton balls in, that kind of thing?
similar to that.
Did it have a lid on it when you picked it up when you first saw it?
Yes.
Do you recall what was in it, if anything?
No, I can't recall.
How full did you fill the jar with ice?
Oh, about halfway, I'd say.
Do you think the jar was maybe 8-9 inches tall?
No,
Shorter or taller?
a little bit shorter.
Did you